You are listening to Hit Play, Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active, performance-minded women. I am your host, Celine Yeager. Each week, I bring you advice from athletes, scientists, researchers, and other experts to help you feel and perform your best, no matter what your hormones are doing. This show is a production of Live Feisty Media. Hello, strong, feisty women. So, this show was originally going to be a conversation with performance psychology consultant Dr. Kathryn Wilder, or KC, it's Kathryn C. Wilder, KC as she likes to be called, about body image and self-identity as we go through menopause. But the conversation got deep fast, and it became something so much more. So I ended up calling it Working Through Menopausal Grief, because that's really what it is. And I sat with that for a while because it feels heavy, and I'm not generally a heavy person that way. But I ultimately kept it because it is real. And just because it's heavy doesn't also mean that it isn't ultimately light. And by that I mean pretty much every single one of us is going to go through some sort of mourning with the changes that come with menopause. Even if we go on hormone therapy, which can help a ton, there is some loss that comes with this time. A loss of our reproductive selves, which for some women is profound. A loss of speed in our sport, a loss of our ability to quickly bounce back after hard workouts, a loss of some aspect of our health, wellness, appearance, you name it. Some are big, some are small, but they're all there and they're real. And that means a measure of going through some stages of grief, which opens us up to a process of discovery and adaptation, and dare I say, transformation that in the end can indeed be quite positive. And there was no better person to have this conversation with than Casey. She's a doctorate from the University of Virginia in human performance, and she has worked with more than 1,000 elite cyclists, including some of the most winning riders in U.S. history, like Laura Van Gilder. She herself is a two-time U.S. national champion, and she's also a recent breast cancer survivor. And she's still processing her journey there, so she wanted to save that particular discussion for another episode, but it has clearly informed the work she does as a performance psychologist. And as she said to me before we hit record, going through that process required a lot of mindset shifts that did not come naturally and were hard work. And that is not unlike the journey through menopause, as many of the same ideas apply. And with that, I hope you enjoy this one as much as I did. All right, before we get to it, as always, find us at Feisty Menopause on Instagram and Facebook. Head on over to feistymenopause.com and sign up for my free weekly 40 plus performance newsletter for all the training and nutrition news you need to know. And thank you, as always, for the continued great ratings and 5-star reviews. I really appreciate it very, very much. It is amazing to still be growing and evolving this show as we reach nearly 200 episodes. All right. Before we get to it, as you have heard in the last episode, if you heard it, we have a new sponsor, MIDI Health, and they are great. As you know, if you've been following my menopause journey here, this year now I am going on about 4 or 5 years post-menopause, and I made this the year of doing like the full check-in, right? Since I'm not using hormone therapy and I haven't used hormone therapy, I wanted to check in on how everything was going under the hood. So I had a DEXA scan. I had my bones checked. Great. Check. Everything's great there. If you listen to the show on the clearly coronary artery calcium scan, I had that done. It came back with excellent results. Check, check. So everything looked great there, but I'm still having some persistent hot flashes, especially around training. They are not terrible. They're actually kind of new post-menopause. I didn't have them the same way before. And, hormone therapy is the best tool for them, and I'm a good candidate. So I had this really wonderful appointment with this great doctor at MIDI, and she heard me out, and I talked to her about like how I don't want patches, and I feel really great. My moods are so steady. I don't want to rock this stable boat, but I would like to take care of these hot flashes if I can. And, she's like, sure, she gave me a lot of options. So I'm on like a low dose gel and some progesterone. It's been a couple weeks. The hot flashes are diminishing, and, I'll keep you all tuned here, but that's how I feel like this journey should be, an individual journey with a informed doctor who is going to help you feel your very best. So with that, I'm stoked that they came out as a sponsor of the show because I hear way too often that women cannot find help. And it just shouldn't be that way. It's not just even about hormone therapy. We need to be able to find someone who listens to us, right? So anyway, stay tuned. I'll talk more about my journey as I get a little further down the road and how it's all going. But thanks, Mitty, for your support. Um, and really quick, don't forget, if you do want to sign up for one of those amazing Be Untethered train and travel trips that are also a sponsor of the show right now for a limited time, you need to sign up by July 8th to get that early bird discount on the Mount Kilimanjaro trip. So don't forget that. You'll find a link to all of this stuff in the show notes. All right, truly enough of me. Let's have a few words about our awesome sponsors and get on with the show. Okay, Casey, I am very happy to have you here in the podcast today because as we talked about a little bit before I hit record, the topic of body image and self-acceptance and all of this is one that I just don't think I can have enough in this time of life for everybody. I hear that when this show breaks my heart and when this community breaks my heart is when I hear every day from women who are just devastated. And that is the word they often use. And that's how I feel when I read the changes they experience during the menopause transition, and I get it. You can look in the mirror and be like, who is this? I used to have these muscles and they're not there anymore. My body is changing. And I hear that women are ashamed of how they look and they don't even want to go on their group rides anymore because they don't know how they look in their lycra. And we get all these societal messages and man, it's so hard. And sometimes I try to frame it as like, this is sort of menopause can almost be like a dress rehearsal for the rest of your life because your body is going to change. Your body at 50 is not going to be what it is at 80. And when you're 80, you're going to look back at 50 or 40 or whatever you are and be like, I was slamming. That was the best time of my life. So, I try to just sort of always put it in perspective, but I thought like a sports psych person might be able to help us on this journey. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. And you know what? This is challenging me as well to kind of to make a shift and say, well, how do these sports psych ideas, apply to menopause?
Yeah.
And they do because we can make some really healthy mental shifts in the moment, and apply them to our everyday lives.
Well, let's get into it. Like
Okay.
it sometimes this happens gradually and sometimes it feels like it happens overnight, but like at some point a woman is going to hit this wall and I hear it all the time. Like what should she do in that moment? And that maybe even it's the initial moment or maybe it's the 10,000th moment. Like what should she do in that moment when she's feeling like I hate this and I don't know where to go in my body?
Okay. All right. Let's start with this. So I hate this. So, all right. So first of all, right. So if we borrow from psychology and say Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, right,
Mm,
and on grieving and the steps to grieving. Well, as a sports psychologist, right, we really want to go to that healthy mindset and what we can control. So
yeah.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump to acceptance. Right. I'm going to jump to that part. I'm not saying that there isn't a ton of personal work to get there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
That's going to be more with your therapist, with your self-help group, with your support groups. So I'm not discounting that. That's incredibly important, and that's the foundation. But I'm saying, okay, well now you're at a good place in that healthy mindset, and you're like, you know what? I really want to have self-control. I want to be that best version of myself, self-respect, self-love, self-care. So let's go to that place of taking action, which I'll do with my athletes,
Mm,
right? So let's assess and plan. How can I be my best self in menopause? How do I want the question that we talked about earlier? How do I want to think about this and look at this, right, as I go into the next decades of my life? So, Celine, if it's cool, I'm going to put it right back at you and say,
Okay.
what, how do you want to look at this menopause, as you move into the next stage of your life?
Yeah, I mean, I personally looked at it as a time to go inward and really assess as like where I am and what I want those next decades to look like and what was important to me. And I think that there is an acceptance, but that doesn't. I think when people hear acceptance, they hear giving up. Do you know what I
Oh,
mean? And
yes.
I never thought that, and the show is not anywhere near about that because there's lots of things you can do. So for me, it was just an examination of like, okay, what will work for me best now? What serves me best now? What is important to me now? What can I change? And what maybe can't I change? And like working with all of that led me to, frankly, like starting the show and talking to people like yourself. But I don't think that I don't think acceptance is giving up. It's just giving yourself grace to stand back for a second.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not giving up. It's giving grace. And when we give ourselves grace, we're making more room for self-love and for self-care and for gratitude. And when there's a tough day, instead of I'm going to beat myself up, I'm going to go back, I'm going to be my own best friend. And being my own best friend, say for me in menopause, right? I know there are certain things that I didn't do before. And I'll give you one example was I took up knitting,
Wow.
right? A little different from like our competitive mindset. But the example for me with knitting, and it goes back to our sports psychology, for me, it was biohacking flow,
I took up stand-up paddleboarding almost for the same thing.
right? Yeah.
Mhm,
Okay. So, right. So you get that. So I could, you know, sit and quiet my mind
mhm.
and not great at knitting, but it's the same thing like with yoga, right? No one was judging it. you know I made the scarf for my mom. She wasn't judging how it looked, a little long and it wasn't perfect, but the process in my head helped me to stay present, and all those things was flow, free of fear of failure, free of fear of doubt. I'm just going to do, and then it's going to feel good while I'm doing it. And so that's to me. So that was like one of my self-care in menopause. I also took up gardening,
Hmm.
walking, hiking, but yoga, meditation. It wasn't like I didn't do these things before, but I didn't do it in the same way with the same intention because I didn't have the same need.
Mm.
So that's one of the things too that I'll say is like, even for athletes, like, what do you like? What do you want? And what do you need? Right. So the same thing applies in menopause. And now it's changing and it might be shifting. What you like now might not be the same thing that you like 10 years ago. Like if somebody told me I'd like knitting so much 10 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, I don't know. I just don't know if I can still that long.
And do you think that that serves you in your athletic pursuits?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because there's always, right, for always there's the balance. And for me, right, as a sports psychologist, I've learned this even more as I've gone along, that I got so good at teaching, many US national champions, world champions, Olympians. I got so good at teaching an athlete when they came to me, in 10 sessions on how to win. Like that's the one thing I'm really good at because that's what I trained for. in performance psychology, performance enhancement, early in the days at UVA with Bob Ortella, like to close the gap from the 8.5 to the 10, I can get you there to the win. Now, that being said, as I've matured, I opened up more and said, you know what? I don't know if that's always the healthiest thing, just to get the athlete to win on the podium. And actually, now I know it's not, because then you get an athlete, they're on the top of the podium and they call you 2 weeks later and they're like having the blues.
Yep.
Right? So it's like, there's more to this. And
Yeah.
as an effective sports psychologist, the most responsible thing to do is to have the holistic approach.
Boy,
Right?
oh boy, that opens up a whole can. I mean, because as you're talking, I'm thinking about, the women who have chased podiums or have chased PRs or have chased whatever forever. And um, because that high doesn't last long, right? That's why you keep chasing to get out of the trough, because you're in the trough and then you chase again. And when you hit menopause, sometimes you can't get out of the damn trough, and it's really, really that now what? Now what?
Now what?
So without that, you're just in the trough.
Correct. Correct. So now, so we go to the athletes and we bring it back to menopause. We want that balance, and we want people, humans, to be well,
Hmm.
do well, and belong. So if we look at that for menopause, what does it mean to be well?
Hmm.
So these are your questions. What does it mean to do well? What does it mean to belong? And so the be well part, right? That's the good stuff. That's the joy. That's the mental shift to say, I'm going to stay in the present. I'm going to have free will. I'm going to do the things that I like. I'm going to take care of myself. What does self-care look like to you? Right? Self-care looked to me yesterday. I did I had a massage with chakra healing, clearing, right? So whatever that is, and I'm just kind of like throwing that out because it's something, again, I wouldn't have done 20 years ago,
Hmm.
but it was grounding for me. So, right. So wherever we find those things, but we always want to, whatever it is, whether our athletes or in menopause, um, not manage, but just take care of the whole person and not be afraid to say, like, yeah, I just need to go and I need to meditate for 20 minutes because I'm going to come back more refreshed, more grounded, clear-headed, focused. And I like this version of me because that's the best version of me that I can be in this moment.
Right.
So
How do you help people then who, I feel like there's sometimes a crisis of identity that happens too, because women have always identified with their achievements, perhaps, or always identified as fast, or identified as strong, or identified as being able to do X, Y, or Z. And, again, menopause or not, like menopause sometimes accelerates these things that we associate with aging, or just like it gets messy in the middle, but you run into this crisis of identity, and it also then dings your confidence, and you're comparing your current self to your former self and everybody around you. Like, how do you get out of that nest that is just sort of trapping you in there?
it is a nest, and that's a good one. I think this directs us to one area, one
Okay.
word, actually: energy. That you want to protect your energy.
Mm.
Protecting your energy is protecting your goodness. And I mean, there's a whole, I don't know if we want to go that direction, but there's a whole direction here, you know, on energy, good energy, bad energy, being around people who have good energy, and that sense of on the be well, do well, belong with the belonging in menopause, particularly, we want to support ourselves with people around us who have good energy.
Yeah.
Who are kind, compassionate, warm, positive, forgiving. Sometimes that good energy too is holding us accountable and giving us a little bit of tough love when we need it. That's cool too, because it's real and it's authentic.
So how, and I agree. How does that help me with my identity crisis?
Okay, so how does it helps you with your identity crisis? Because you, on that part with the energy, you have people who are supporting and feeding your right energy and helping you. If we're really at that crisis, sometimes when you're in a crisis, you can't see all the good things about you and about this change.
Mm-hmm.
You can, in a crisis, overly focus on the negatives of the past, and you might not have as much hope for the future.
Yes.
So it helps you in that identity crisis to really see, you know, look, I get it. I see who you are. I can also, from this outside perspective as an observer, I can see where you can go. I can see where you're going to be at the other side of this identity crisis. And guess what? That's part of the change. And change is good and it's refreshing. And you're going to lose maybe relationships in your life that aren't serving you anymore. You're gonna lose maybe that hyper competitive part of yourself, but you're going to be on the other side, and it's going to open you up for all sorts of new things, people to come into your life.
What are some of the mindset shifts that need to happen to get us there?
Okay, so okay, let me address that, but let me give a little bit of a foundation before I address that.
Go for it.
Okay. All right. So we're all born with our own talents and gifts of life,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's our job to develop them into skills for living, so that we can transition from wonder to wealth, WELLTH.
Okay.
Okay, so if we have that, then we go back, and I'll repeat that again, to our be well, do well, belong.
Mm-hmm.
Find what you like, want, and need. Okay, so now, what are some of the mental shifts, right, that we need to do to get there? One shift, simply for confidence, is to shift and be like, I believe in me. It's really simple. Like, let's not make confidence any more complicated than that. For an athlete going to the podium, well, I believe I'm going to win today. I believe I believe I've done the work. I've done the preparation. I'm going to be present. I'm not going to doubt myself. I'm not going to fear winning. I'm not going to fear failure. And I'm going to get there, and I'm going to get on the podium today. I believe in myself. So the same thing here with menopause is like, you know, I'm going to have good days. I'm going to have bad days, and I'm not alone. Other women are having good days and bad days. But the main thing that I can do is say, I believe in myself. I believe that I I'm going to know how to. I'm going to learn, if I haven't already learned how to really take care of myself.
Right.
I'm going to learn. Um, I'm going to believe that when I have a bad day, I'm going to have my own, strategies to get through that mental shift. And I can use the 3 R's, right, that I use with an athlete. I
Hmm.
can recognize I'm not feeling great. I
Yep.
can regroup. I can pull myself to confidence. I can use my vision. I can regroup. And then I can refocus. 3 R's: recognize, regroup, refocus. I can use that simple skill to get back on track.
Hmm. Okay. I like that.
Right? Um, so yeah, it's a constant, it's the cognitive behavioral training there, right? But it's the concept. Well, I'm going to shift and refocus. I'm going to reframe this.
Yep. And then does it help to, um, as somebody who sometimes falls into the outcome based goals, I definitely in my life have slipped in more towards outcome based goals than process goals.
Of course.
And with time, I have found more, um, being able to stay in the now and sort of staying out of that anxious place by being more process oriented. Is there a place for that in this conversation?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. So, all right. So, one way to look at right, we want to be process oriented to achieve the outcome.
Hmm.
So, one way to look at it is a colleague of mine who we've worked on a number of projects together, my colleague Doug Newberg from the University of Virginia. And his model is called the process of performance.
Okay.
So you're living the dream to achieve your goal. You're living the dream, which is staying in the present, being in the process, being in the now to achieve the outcome goal. So to simplify this model, the process of performance, what people with athletes will have a tendency to do is they're living the dream to achieve the goal. If they hit an obstacle, they're on this road, right? Now you're on a narrow road, say, and you hit an obstacle. And if it's a narrow road, they get blocked. And instead of the living the dream part and feeling good, they end up feeling bad and they get blocked and they get stuck. It's like a road barrier's up. So what we want is on that path, we want a wider road.
Hmm.
And then where there's an obstacle, we can go around it. It's not
How do
going
we
to be,
make how do we make that wider road?
yeah, how do we make the wider road by letting go of some of our perfectionistic tendencies. There's no such thing as perfect.
Hmm.
Um, right. And it goes back to that acceptance and taking action. And we let it go and say, you know what? Um, with the men with maybe I'm not as fast as I used to be. My body's not as limber as it used to be, but there's an option here and I can just go a little bit wider and I'll give myself grace. I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. I never was perfect. My body's not perfect now, certainly, but this is the body I have. I'm going to do what I can with it.
Yeah, and
I'm limitations, certainly.
I think that's where people get very stuck. And I've heard from people very recently about this, is that they can't they can't make the road wide enough to accept the body that they currently have. Whether it's because they've gained weight during menopause, that's usually what I hear. Um, and I am always at a loss to know what to say on it, if I'm just completely honest. I just don't know what to say. I try everything. But it's really heartbreaking. And I know nobody has like the magic answers. There's no magic answers, but what is the best process, I guess, for to just finding some some acceptance um when you feel that way?
So I know, look, it's so hard. If we could answer this question,
we we would be yeah, we would be
a
yeah.
community, a community like what you've created, so powerful because like-minded people saying, you know what? I, I'm going to be vulnerable here. I'm going to share my struggle and it's
Mhm.
okay because everyone else is struggling and um, we can help each other rise by being there for one another, by supporting, by listening, by caring. Um, but then, so the community, it's a little bit more of that extrinsic
Mm.
feedback. But at the end of the day, what do we want? We want that intrinsic feedback. Um, so it goes back to, well, how do I, how do I fully have that self-esteem and that self-worth? Because now it doesn't matter really what obstacles are happening out there. At the end of the day, it's on me. It's on me. Like I have a responsibility to me to love myself, to care for myself, to nurture myself, to challenge myself, to be self-disciplined, to uh, be in control of having my own reset, my mindset. So, what are some things that we can do? We can, here's one of the main things we can do is just find what you like and do it. Find what you love. What sparks joy, right? For you and me, I think we can both say exercise, but I brought that up, that knitting example, just because there are plenty of other things play where you can find flow, you know, playing a musical instrument, anything that you can do, creative, writing, dancing, acting, playing, that yeah, it gets you to the now, but it also makes you feel good on the inside. So anything that you can do to get to a flow state, um, uh, anything that you can do to stay in the present, meditation, mindfulness.
Yeah. I mean, I do sometimes have recommended, if somebody is really struggling with, say they're a runner and they have put on weight during menopause and now their running is not bringing them as much joy, and that's real. I cannot take, I can't be, I mean, that's just how they're feeling. It's real for them,
Feel for that.
so for me, it's just like, okay, what if you what if you go hiking for a while? Or what if you, what if you try to like go to on a parallel path for just a bit even?
That's
So you're
it.
not doing that self-comparison and you're trying like so it's you're just out of your head a little bit in that and just see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it. That's, yeah. Um, well, another thing I took up in menopause was flower arranging. And I'm bringing that up because it just sparks joy and it's just the
Mm,
opposite. There's no competition in it.
right, right.
It's like, this feels good, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And no one's judging me or evaluating me because I don't want to be, there are times that I don't want to be judged and evaluated because it goes back to, I want to feel good inside of me and my own self-love, self-care, self-nurturing.
Yeah, that's interesting. You bring up, and I will be completely transparent. I struggle mightily with the concept of self-love. I just can't. I'm never one of those people who's just like, I love myself or look in the mirror. Like I just can't even say the words. But I've had people then counter me and say, but you take such good care of yourself. There's no way that you don't
Right.
it's love yourself at some basic level, even if you can't think of it in those words. I really struggle with thinking about that in those words. And I think that a lot of women, um also have this notion that if they don't, because of cultural messages we all grew up with, that if they don't look a certain way, they're unlovable. Like we get these messages that are
Oh, of
just very,
course.
very hard to. So when I'm hearing everything that you're doing, it's almost like you are really taking care of yourself by really intentionally doing things that bring your mind peace and take you out of that thought process, which is your act of self-love. And I imagine like I now am very into birding and paddleboarding and I feel like it's the same thing. It's taking me out of myself and into appreciation of the world around me, irrespective of what's happening with my hormones or my speed.
Right, right. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, no. Yeah, I hear you, but I do like that feedback that people have said to you, well, you take care of yourself. Right. So I know. And then it's a hard concept to jump to self-love. And I don't, so,
I think people struggle with it.
oh, definitely. Definitely. It's such a hard thing because it's so, we love our spouses, we love our children, we love our animals, like we love our dogs, our cats. Like, why can't we love ourselves? But it is, uh, I think it's a weird thing to like say out loud too. But connected with that self-love is we don't have to say it that way necessarily. Self-care and self-respect.
Yeah.
For me, really, really what's most important is that I have my own self-respect.
Mm,
And
yeah.
that's one of my perceptions in the way I move about in the world too. Like uh, sometimes I might not like someone, but I respect them, and that's a lot to me. So I want to respect someone.
Mhm.
And so if that's such a big value for me in respecting others, I want to respect myself. And then how do I give myself that self-respect when my body doesn't look the way that it used to?
Mhm.
I don't feel as good or as strong in my body as I used to.
Mhm.
Um, I'm can't show up at a race like I used to, you know, and perform the way that I want to, perhaps. If I want to win a race, coming back, I'm age graded. You know, I have to remember that with the time, say for the pursuit, I can't compare that pursuit time to when I was 30. I
Yep.
have to accept what it is at 57 and be like, okay, well, I'm glad that there's a 55 to 59 category. And
Yeah.
then, right? Then, so that self-respect has to do with that. This is where I am now. There may be some limitations placed on me, but I'm going to go out and I'm going to do the best that I can. When I hit that time, I'll compare myself not to my old self. I'll compare myself to myself at 57. That's
You know,
that's my new baseline.
yeah, yeah. And but so let's go full circle here because you
Mhm.
started going straight to acceptance through the stages of grief. But do you feel like um that we need to actually go through any of those stages of grief to get there? I mean, can you short circuit it or do you need to be like I mean, I do feel like I went through, and it wasn't prolonged, but I definitely went through a grieving process. Like, through as I entered into the tunnel, if you will, I was just like, I am not going to be the same. Like, but that's irretrievable. That's just the way life is. And, um, so I can mourn that. I can also celebrate that I had it, and
Yep.
sort of like I don't know that I wasn't angry. I didn't go through all of them necessarily, but there was
Right.
sadness.
Of course.
Um there wasn't much denial, just like but for some people there is. I mean, you see people and that's just not women. People like try to make these comebacks or try to do these things and I think it just is what it is in sport, but I do feel like you need to allow yourself to go through some stages, and like open yourself up to those hard feelings and just let them happen.
Yes,
And
yeah.
then, like anything, like when you lose anything, like there
Mhm.
has to be,
Yeah.
because if you're
No,
forever searching for that lost thing, you're never going to move forward. You're never going
100%.
to, yeah.
100%. And I appreciate that. I appreciate, giving that kind of feedback to me. So, okay, to explain myself here, that I came at it two different sides. One is a sports psychologist and one from a personal
Mm.
perspective. So from a personal perspective, oh yeah, lots of stages, right? That's what's real. But that is um, a place to uh, in self-help groups or with your therapist to work on getting to those stages or using your own skills that you've had over time that you've learned on how to move through grief. Okay. So that's one side of it. The other side, me as a professional, as a sports psychologist, I deal with the performance edge so that if I have an issue that's clinical, anxiety or depression, I make a referral to a clinical psychologist
Yeah.
because I'm a performance coach.
Yep.
So did that clarify a little bit more? So really, there's a line, right, that's drawn from me as a professional with whom I'm work. And there's an assessment. So if I have an assessment of clinical anxiety, I'm not taking you on as a client. I'm making the referral, or I'm taking you on as a client. And so okay, you work with a therapist, and then you come to me, and I'm going to enhance your performance with these skills.
Right. I mean, I think I was really just that was more of a global question. I didn't if if it was to get to acceptance if you had to work through some other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, all these, so many challenges. And again, that's why I'm going to go full circle back to you with thank you so much, that you're addressing such a challenging topic.
Thank you for
My
saying that.
closest,
There's some days I walk around just like with a very, very honestly, there are just days that I despair is too strong of a word, but because I'm so empathetic, I feel the weight of the pain that a lot of women are expressing.
Mhm.
And I have no magic wand. I can't make it go away. I can't, they want answers for, and so much of this comes down to weight. And God damn it, I'm so angry about the whole weight thing. I don't even know what to say, because if I had an answer or if anybody had an answer, we wouldn't be having these conversations and so many women would not be in despair. And it makes me, Casey, it makes me so angry when I think about how many years of women's precious lives they will have wasted because they don't want their thighs to touch, or they don't like the size that they are, or because they're in a big, it breaks my fucking heart. And I don't expect you to have an answer, but since we're so deep in it,
No, but
I
I'm so
just had to
empathetic
say
too.
it.
So I'm like thinking of, yeah, I know. I know. Me too. It breaks my heart. Like, right. That's the extrinsic, and that's the society, and that's the judgment, and that's the criticism. It's like,
And we're the only ones that can free ourselves from it.
and we're the only ones who can free ourselves from it. Yep. Um, yeah. And then we talk to each other and say, look, it's real. I can't eat what I used to. If I do, I look at the scale and I gain a pound. Just looking at the food sometimes. So yeah, it just to say to each other, yeah, it's real. My metabolism changed, my hormones changed. I don't feel like the same way that I used to. My Sometimes my joints are achy. It's happened to me too. Sometimes I don't sleep well at night. I've got night sweats. How about you? Oh yeah, me too. What do you do for that? Oh, I tried
Yeah.
this meditation. That helps, right? So it's talking, it's sharing our stories, being vulnerable. But then sometimes it's saying, you know what? It's freeing each other, saying, you know what,
Yeah.
I don't notice that. That doesn't bother me about you
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and
at
that's what
all.
totally. And I think that's when you're talking about community is so important, but also just this is, at once, I think sometimes such a heartbreaking time of life, but I also in so many ways feel like it's my most joyous time of life. Those things are coexisting and it's very interesting to me. Like I'm s- I'm not as fast as I used to be and I never will be. That is what it is. But like I really still very much enjoy riding my bike and exploring on my bike and feeling, expressing myself on my bike and moving my body. And I now stop and I take pictures where I would never have stopped to take a picture before, and
Right.
that's the joyous thing. So yeah.
Oh my God. See, this is this is opening another thing with me with bicycling and right in the competition and feeling good and expressing yourself. But uh, right, we have to continue to learn to play on our bicycles because of power meters, right? Because then that's another game changer. But we'll leave that there. But yeah, what's most important is you get to go out on your bike ride and you play and you do things that spark joy so you feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
And right, and we said this before, what do you like, want, need? And so before you can feel good about yourself, like you're really fortunate. I'm really fortunate. At the end of the day, like it doesn't matter. Like I ride my bike every day, even if it's on a half mile on my 1976 Raleigh bicycle with a basket on it, to get a kombucha at the supermarket. But that makes me happy. So I'm really fortunate that I have that one thing.
Yeah.
And then I challenge myself in menopause to find more things
Yeah.
that aren't physically oriented as I age to feel that sense of um, flow,
Mm-hmm.
bliss,
Mm-hmm.
presence.
Yep.
Yeah. But for all women, if we just say, if we can ask the question, what sparks joy?
Yeah.
You're not having a great day, you're overthinking, you're thinking about your body image. Okay, just go do that because then it shuts off your brain that's being negative and beating you up.
Yeah.
Because we all know that that's our default. Our brain goes to negative as a default because it's a survival mechanism.
Yep. No, I think that's really great advice. I think just exploring if what you are doing is no longer bringing you joy and you just keep slamming into the same wall, maybe turn around and walk the other way. Just see,
Yeah,
like, see
yeah,
if there's
right.
something in the other direction.
Yeah, turn
Um,
around.
yeah, I agree with that. And and that's not to say, I mean, you mentioned like competing in your age group. There's plenty of age group competitions, and if that is still not sparking you joy, I'd like find another. I've talked to so many women who just took up another parallel sport, and the beauty of that is you have nothing to compare yourself to, and you almost have nowhere to go but up. Like I think that is that can be such a powerful thing in and of itself. If you are one of like if you're driven by a competitive thing, and like some people are more so than others. I fall somewhere in the middle. I mean, I everybody likes, to do well and to be accomplished in whatever they're doing. But if you take up something just even slightly different, you get that feeling of accomplishment again.
Yes, yeah, I love it. 100% agree. Yeah. to find some, because with it's always so good for our brains, for our brain health to learn something new,
Well, that's true too. Yeah.
right? So not only you're learning something new, you're putting yourself in a new community,
Yep.
and the the rate of improvement is bigger.
Yeah, it's good for you.
Really good for you.
It's not just like fighting to hang on or make marginal gains, you know?
Get a
Yeah.
little dopamine hits, you get to all the little things. You mean, for if you take up pickleball, you get the new racket and the matching outfit or
Mhm.
whatever. Like, it's all good. Yeah,
Yeah.
take up new things. Find a parallel.
Yeah. No, I love that. Is there anything, Casey? I think that this has been amazing and um yeah, just cathartic on some levels. But is there
Yes,
anything
it
that we
is.
haven't talked about that you wanted to make sure that we left the audience with about this whole concept of like, being in the now and self-acceptance during a time of change?
I think our main one is that it you know the history here, but for how long has it been called like the change, right? Like, that's it. It's eh, and and then I love the name of, of your pocket, hit play not pause. That's exactly it. First of all, it's a change, accept it, go into that play and process mode, and have like the greatest amount of faith that something good is coming,
Mm.
right? Like, no, but no, this happened and I can't believe this and I failed here and I had these health issues. I was like, well, okay, that did happen, but it wasn't all bad, was it? Like, what did you learn from it? What did you learn about yourself? And what shifts did you have to make that helped you learn more about yourself so that you could be the best version of you?
100%. I love that. And that is a mic drop moment for sure. And it reminds me, I had on a woman, Casey Duke, years ago, who talked about like never forgetting that, all that you are the same person and the same capable person who did all the work to do the achievements that you got to at this point. Like that has not changed. You still have those tools inside you. You just like need to dust them off and apply them. You know what I mean? To this time of life as well.
Right? Yes. And I'll say this. So as a mother, like what I'll always say to my boys is like, the comeback's always better than the setback. Right? In the simplest
Yeah.
terms, like,
Yep.
yeah, menopause has times where it's a setback. But then let's get to the other side and decades left of living,
Totally.
and let's make the comeback. However that looks, and it's not about the win, the comeback is saying, I feel really good about who I am. What I
That
get,
is a mic drop.
that's a mic drop.
All
So,
right. Well, that's our show. Come on back for a real Tales from the Trenches kind of episode next week with Erin Ferguson, a triathlete who put up with a ridiculous amount of runaround and frankly bullshit care before she finally got someone who gave her the help she needed that literally turned her life around. So come on back for that one. And until then, as always, you know what to do. Stay feisty. You've been listening to Hit Play, Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active, performance-minded women. I'm your host, Celine Yeager. The show is edited and produced by the strong, talented, and amazing women at Live Feisty Media. Follow us on social media at Feisty Menopause, and please help us spread the word. Screenshot and share this episode on your social media channels with the tag at Feisty Menopause. Share the show with your friends, and please subscribe, like, review, and rate this show wherever you get your podcasts. Word of mouth and good reviews make it easier for other listeners to find. Thanks for listening, and as always, stay feisty.